The day I moved into that house, I noticed the garden in the backyard had no weeds, not a single one. Every other yard on that street was overgrown with bush, with dry leaves, with the kind of neglect that comes from poverty and busy lives. But that garden, it was perfect, too perfect. And I told myself it was because the landlord was a careful man. I was wrong, so wrong. My name is Adaeze, 31 years old, secondary school teacher, freshly transferred from Enugu to Lagos with one bag, 2 boxes, and a desperate need for cheap accommodation. When my colleague Nikiru showed me the listing, I almost laughed. 3-bedroom flat, private compound, quiet street in Ikorodu, 55,000 naira per year in Lagos. I asked her twice if she was joking. She said she had seen the place herself and that the landlord, a man called Ogenikaro, was a widower who just wanted a quiet tenant. She said his only condition was simple: do not touch the garden in the backyard. I did not think that condition was strange at the time. People have conditions. Some landlords say no loud music. Some say no visitors after 10. This one said no touching the garden. Fine, the garden could stay. I moved in on a Saturday in April. And if you are watching this and you have ever moved into a new place alone, you know that feeling, that mix of excitement and quiet fear that sits in your chest when you first close the door behind you and realize this is yours now. This space is yours. I had that feeling. I stood in the empty parlor and I breathed it in. And then I smelled something. Faint, sweet, like flowers, but underneath the sweetness was something else. Something I could not name. I told myself it was just the paint on the walls, or dust, or my own tired nose playing tricks on me after the long journey. But the smell came back that first night, stronger. At around 2 in the morning, I woke up from sleep and the smell was sitting right there in the room with me, thick and present, like a third person. I went to check the windows, thinking something outside had drifted in, and when I looked out the bedroom window that faced the backyard, I saw it. The garden was glowing. Not with electric lights, not with anything I could explain. A soft, pale shimmer, like moonlight had decided to pull itself in that one patch of earth. I stood at that window for a long time. I told myself it was the moon. It was a full moon and the garden had some kind of reflective plant in it. I told myself that. I went back to sleep, but before I closed my eyes, I made a promise to myself. In the morning, I would call Nikiru and ask her again about this house. Ask her what she knew, really knew. And if you are new here and you want to hear what Nikiru told me and what I eventually found out about that garden and the woman buried inside it, stay right here and subscribe to this channel, because what comes next is not something you will forget easily. Morning came, the smell was gone. The garden looked normal in daylight. Rows of small green plants, a few low flowers, a worn wooden fence around the perimeter. Pretty even. I called Nikiru and I asked her, casually, what she knew about the landlord's late wife. She went quiet for a moment. Then she said, Obi, the woman died 2 years ago. People said it was sudden. Ogenikaro does not talk about it. I asked where the wife was buried. Nikiru said she did not know. I said nothing, but something in my stomach moved. Ogenikaro visited that Sunday. He was a tall man, maybe 50, with grey at his temples and the kind of face that was once handsome and still carried the memory of it. He was polite. He asked if everything was fine, if the water pressure was good, if the electricity was behaving. I said yes to everything. And then, just before he turned to leave, he stopped and looked toward the backyard. His back was to me, but I saw his shoulders drop, just slightly, like a man releasing a breath he had been holding for a long time. He said without turning around, please, the garden, you have not disturbed it? I said no. He said good. He left, and I stood in the kitchen doorway watching the space he had just vacated, thinking about what kind of man comes to check on a garden before he checks on his tenant. The weeks passed. I settled into the house, I went to work, I came home, I cooked my dinner, I graded papers. The normal rhythm of a life trying to restart itself. But the garden was always there. always at the edge of my vision when I sat at the kitchen table. Always too neat, too attended. I noticed that Ogenekaro came by every Thursday, always alone, always going straight to the backyard. I watched him once from my window. He crouched beside the garden for almost 40 minutes. He did not pull weeds, he did not water anything. He just stayed there, crouching, his hands pressed flat against the soil, like he was listening to something. I started asking questions, carefully. I talked to Mama Tunde, the woman who sold akara by the junction. She had lived on that street for 20 years. She was the kind of woman who knew everything and told half of it. I bought akara I didn't need 3 days in a row before she finally said something useful. She said the landlord's wife was called Adana. She said Adana was a beautiful woman, warm, the kind of person who remembered your children's names. She said Adana had been fine one day and gone the next, and that the official story was a stroke. But Mama Tunde did not believe the official story. She looked at me with those old eyes and she said, nobody saw that woman sick. Nobody saw her carried to any hospital. One day she was here, one day she was not. I walked home slowly that day. The sun was going down and the street was orange, and I was thinking about Adana, thinking about a woman who disappeared without witnesses. And when I got home and went to the kitchen to boil water, I looked out at the garden and I thought something that I did not want to think, something that made my hands go still over the kettle. What if she did not disappear? What if she was still here? I know how that sounds. I know you might be thinking I am a superstitious woman, a village girl seeing spirits in ordinary things. But here is what I need you to understand. I am a science teacher. I believe in what I can measure. And what I could measure was this: a man who visited a garden instead of a grave, a woman with no known burial site, a smell that came in the night, and a patch of soil that stayed perfect without anyone tending it. I started researching on my phone, late at night, with the door locked and the curtains drawn, as if someone might see what I was reading. I searched for Adana's name. I found nothing useful until I searched with her husband's name combined with hers, and then I found an old Facebook post from someone called Chiamaka, who had written a message on what would have been Adana's birthday. The message said, "1 year without you. I still do not understand how you left us so fast. Ogenekaro will not even let us visit your grave. He says there is no grave, that he scattered your ashes in the garden like you wanted. But Adana, you never told me that. You never said that to me." My hand was shaking when I screenshotted that post. Scattered ashes, a garden, a man who pressed his hands to the soil every Thursday. Maybe that really was the explanation. Maybe it was grief, beautiful and strange and possessive, and I was making something sinister out of something that was just a man who could not let go of the woman he lost. Maybe. But then, I found Chiamaka. It took me 2 weeks of gentle searching, through Instagram, through Facebook groups, through a mutual contact who knew someone who had gone to Adana's secondary school. And when I finally messaged her, I did not tell her who I was at first. I said I was doing a piece on grief and memorial practices for a small publication. She responded quickly. She was warm, the way people are when they are still carrying something heavy, and they are grateful someone finally asked. We spoke on a voice call, and that call changed everything. Chiamaka told me that she had been Adana's closest friend for 17 years. She told me about the woman, who she was, how she laughed, what she liked to eat, and then her voice shifted. She said, "There are things about how Adana died that I have never been able to make peace with." I asked her what she meant. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, 6 months before she died, Adana called me. She said she was afraid of Ogenekaro. She said he had become someone she did not recognize. She said he had been mixing things into her food. I told her she was stressed. I told her marriage does that to people sometimes. I told her to rest. I sat very still on my bed. Chiamaka said, she called me again 2 months later. She said she kept feeling dizzy, that her body felt strange, that Ogenekaro had stopped letting her go out alone. I told her to leave. I told her to come to my house. She said she would come on Friday. Her voice broke. She never came. On Thursday night, Ogenekaro called me and said she was gone, stroke. And he handled everything himself, so fast, before any of us could even get there, it was done. And now, he says her ashes are in that garden, and he will not leave that house, and he will not let anyone come near that garden. And she could not finish. I had her crying. And I sat there in that house, in that room that looked out over that garden, and I felt cold in a way that had nothing to do with the temperature. Subscribe right now if you want to stay with me through the rest of this, because what I did next and what I found out is the part that I still wake up at night thinking about. I made a decision. I know it was not the safe decision, but I am telling you this from the other side, so at least you know I survived it. I needed to see inside that garden. Not to dig, not to disturb, just to look, just to see if there was anything there that should not be there. A marker, a shape, anything. Because a woman was either at peace in that soil or she was not. And if she was not, then someone needed to know. I waited for a Thursday. Ogenekaro always came in the late afternoon. I planned to go to the garden in the early morning before dawn while the street was still sleeping. I set my alarm for 4:30, and when it rang, I sat up in the dark and I gave myself 1 minute to change my mind. I did not change my mind. I went downstairs. I went through the kitchen. I opened the back door slowly, the way you open a door when you are terrified of what sound it might make. The night air came in first, cool and thick, and with it came that smell again, flowers and something beneath the flowers, and it was stronger out here, much stronger. I turned on my phone torch. The garden was small, maybe 4 meters by 3. The plants were arranged in neat rows, low-growing things, mostly leafy with small white flowers I did not recognize. I crouched at the edge, and I shone my torch across the surface of the soil, and I looked. And then I saw it. In the center of the garden, almost hidden by the plants around it, was a small stone. Not a decorative stone, a flat stone pushed down into the earth at an angle, like it was being placed there deliberately and then covered over with time and growth. I reached in carefully, and I moved 2 of the plants aside, just enough to see the stone clearly. There was writing on it. Scratched into the surface, rough like it had been done by hand with a sharp object, were 3 words. She is here. I don't know how long I knelt there. I remember that my knees were wet from the damp soil. I remember that somewhere down the street a dog barked once and went quiet. I remember that my hand was shaking so badly that the torchlight was jumping all over the garden like something alive. She is here. Not her ashes, not her memory, her. I went back inside. I locked the door. I went upstairs and I sat on my bed and I did not sleep. I sat there until the sky went from black to grey to the kind of pale orange that means morning is deciding to happen. And I thought about Adana. I thought about Chiamaka, who had been told it was a stroke. I thought about Ogenekaro pressing his hands to the soil every Thursday, and I understood now, with a sickness in my stomach, that it was not grief, it was something else entirely. By 6 in the morning, I had made 2 calls. One to Chiamaka. I told her what I had found. She was silent for so long I thought the call had dropped. Then she said quietly, but with a steadiness that told me she had been waiting for this moment for 2 years, "Tell me what to do." The second call I made was harder. The second call was to the police. I want to be honest with you. The police were not easy. The first officer I spoke to was dismissive. He asked me if I was sure I was not dreaming. He used the word hysterical, and I had to hold myself together very tightly in that moment. But I called again. I asked for a senior officer. I told the story from the beginning, clearly with dates and details, and the screenshot of Chiamaka's Facebook post, and the note I had photographed on that stone. And something in the way I told it made someone listen. They came 4 days later. Not immediately. Nothing in this country happens immediately. But they came. 2 officers and a man who I was told was from the state CID. They came on a Wednesday, 1 day before Ogenikaru's usual visit. They came with a warrant and they went into the garden. I stood in the kitchen and I watched through the window. I watched them measure the garden. I watched them take soil samples, and then one of the officers went very still and called the other one over. And I knew from the way they moved, from the way their bodies changed, that they had found something. They found her. Adana was buried 40 centimeters beneath that garden, wrapped in a heavy tarpaulin that had slowed the natural process enough that identification was still possible. The medical examiner found evidence of poisoning, long, slow, careful poisoning, the kind that looks like illness, that looks like a body failing of its own accord, that looks like a stroke if no one is looking closely enough. Ogenikaru was arrested on a Thursday morning, his usual visit day. He came through the gate with his keys and his quiet face, and they were waiting for him. Chiamaka told me later that when they put the handcuffs on him, he did not cry or shout or fight. He just looked toward the garden, like he was saying goodbye, or like he was sorry. I stayed in that house for 3 more weeks, while everything was processed, while statements were taken, while Chiamaka and Adana's family navigated the terrible paperwork of reclaiming a body that should never have been hidden. I stayed because living felt like abandonment, like if I left, Adana would be alone again in all this noise and motion, and I could not do that to her. I left eventually. I had to. I found a room in a shared apartment with 2 other teachers, and I paid more rent, and it was noisier and smaller, and I did not mind any of it, because every window in that apartment looked out on open street and sky, and there was nothing buried beneath. But here is the thing I want to leave you with. The thing that stays with me. That garden was perfect because he took care of it. Ogenikaru watered it and tended it and kept it beautiful because that is where she was. You can make of that what you will. I have thought about it many times, and I still do not know if it was guilt or grief or something so twisted it had no clean name. Maybe all 3, tangled up together in a man who did something monstrous and then could not stop loving what he had destroyed. I think about Adana often. I think about the call she made to Chiamaka. I think about the Friday she was supposed to arrive and did not. I think about all the ordinary moments she lived before a man who was supposed to protect her decided he would not. I think about her name, which means her father's wealth, and how a woman that precious was put into the earth like something to be hidden. She deserved better. She deserved the chance to walk out of that door on a Friday. She deserved her friend waiting for her at the gate. She deserved the whole ordinary life that was taken from her. If you are watching this and something feels wrong in your situation, trust that feeling. Call the person who is waiting for you. Walk out of the door. Do not wait for Friday. Go now while you can, while the air outside is still something you are allowed to breathe. And if this story moved you, if Adana's story stayed with you the way it has stayed with me, subscribe to this channel. Not for me. Subscribe so that the next story, and the one after that, and the one after that finds you. Because there are more stories like this one. Stories of people who were hidden, who were silent, who were finally found. And they deserve to be heard, every single one of them. Organicaro is awaiting trial. Chiamaka visits the family on weekends. The garden was dismantled, and somewhere Adana is finally buried in a place with her name on it, above the ground, where people who love her can stand and speak to her and let the wind carry their words wherever she has gone. That is the ending she deserved. I am glad at least that she got it.